Nearly got what we're about to receive. May the Lord not kill me with food poisoning. Oh, Jesus. I thought your food was crap. Tasteless, bizarre. Your food was long-winded, boring, and just, badly done.
No, it's on the
What the fuck are you talking about? You coming back here asking me what's in this, what's in that? You should know that shit already. All right, then don't fucking ask me shit. No, we don't got shit now.
I just want you to take pride in what the f you do in a business. And if you applied what you applied in yourself each and every day, you won't be serving that shit. Right now, we've got some issues in here.
From rancid lamb in New York, raw pizza dough in Arizona, to rubbery shrimp, when Ramsay shows up at your restaurant, you know it's not going to be a walk in the park, but just how bad can it get? Well, let's just say it's worse than you think.
Puree's in your mouth. It sort of sticks to the roof of your mouth.
Yeah, so first stop, Los Angeles, the city of stars where even the food is expected to shine. But at Sante La Brea, Chef Ramsay is confronted with a dining experience that falls far short of its promise.
I am the cook, I'm the janitor, I also do all the maintenance. The water's still on? With a thin, very thin thread, I'm holding this place alive.
From the moment he walks in, it's clear that something is seriously wrong. The restaurant, known for its healthy menu, is failing to deliver on its claims of fresh and nutritious fare. Chef Ramsay starts with high hopes, but quickly becomes disheartened as he reviews the menu and orders a couple of dishes, the blackened salmon and the turkey patty. When the food finally arrives, Chef Ramsay is greeted with a sight that does nothing to boost his optimism. The turkey patty, meant to be a healthy option, is melting rather than maintaining its shape. The texture is all wrong, dry and falling apart.
Turkey melts. My God.
It's immediately apparent that the patty is overcooked and improperly handled. Chef Ramsay, known for his blunt feedback, doesn't hold back. He mentioned to his team that if the restaurant was supposed to be all about healthy food, the turkey patty didn't really fit the bill. It was dry, overcooked, and honestly, he thought it wasn't worth eating.
That is dry, and they are disgusting. Come here. Look, smell, Tubbs.
The situation with the blackened salmon is no better. The dish arrives with the rice overcooked to a degree that makes it look like a heap of mush. The salmon itself is blackened so heavily that it resembles something out of a horror film rather than a fine dining experience. Chef Ramsay took one look at the plate, clearly unimpressed. He pointed out that the dish looked messy, comparing it to something a dog would eat. As for the taste, he wasn't any more pleased, mentioning that healthy food should never look or taste that bad.
I'm stuck here in the center of La Brea. Don't do food.
The food at Sante La Brea fails on multiple fronts. It lacks proper seasoning, the texture is off, and the presentation is unappetizing, being bland, overcooked, and completely unappealing.
Does not have to look like shit and taste crap. I'm really sorry.
I agree with you.
So,
In his evaluation of the food, Chef Ramsay underscores a significant issue. The restaurant's self-proclaimed health focus is overshadowed by poor execution. The supposed healthy options turn out to be poorly cooked and poorly presented, which undermines the restaurant's entire concept. He says that healthy food doesn't need to look or taste bad, but when it does, it shows a complete failure of the kitchen standards.
Oh, Jesus.
oh,
Not that bad.
show me where the salmon is.
Chef Ramsay's reaction is a clear indication that Sante La Brea is struggling with its core offerings. The restaurant's commitment to healthy dining is undermined by a lack of attention to detail and basic cooking techniques. The dishes served are far from the nutritious, appetizing meals one would expect. And Chef Ramsay's feedback highlights a larger problem with the restaurant's approach to food preparation and quality.
Fresh salmon. Oh dear. That's wild salmon. When did it come in?
Yesterday.
As Chef Ramsay keeps critiquing the dishes, his frustration only deepens. He points out that it's not just a single bad dish causing the problem, it's the whole menu that's not living up to expectations. The food is supposed to be fresh, well-prepared, and appetizing, but instead, it's a complete mess.
I'm somewhat confused. Nobody seems to take and accept responsibility.
The experience at Sante La Brea is a stark reminder of how important it is for a restaurant to live up to its claims. For a place that markets itself as a purveyor of healthy cuisine, the failure to execute basic cooking principles effectively is a significant issue. Chef Ramsay's visit uncovers not just the flaws in individual dishes, but a systemic problem within the kitchen. Chef Ramsay's assessment of Sante La Brea reveals a kitchen in disarray. The blackened salmon and turkey patty are emblematic of larger issues: poor execution, lack of attention to detail, and an overall disregard for the restaurant's supposed focus on health. Chef Ramsay's critique is both a reflection of the current state of the restaurant and a call to action for substantial improvements. Without significant changes, Sante La Brea's promise of healthy, high-quality food remains unfulfilled, leaving its patrons and Chef Ramsay disappointed. Next stop, Pomona, California, where Gordon Ramsay walks into Nino's Italian restaurant, hoping for some authentic Italian flavors, but quickly realizes he's in for anything but that. From the moment he steps inside, it's clear that this place is stuck in the past, and not in a charming, nostalgic way. The first clue comes with the menu. It's oversized, outdated, and reads like a novel. Chef Ramsay flips through pages of dishes that haven't changed in decades, a relic of what might have been a hit in the 80s, but now looks like a list of every carb imaginable. Chef Ramsay was only looking for something Italian, but what arrives at the table is far from it. His first taste is of Nino's famous fresh nachos, but there's nothing fresh about them. The chips are limp and soggy, covered in a layer of cheese that's hardened into a plastic-like sheet. Chef Ramsay takes a bite, and you can immediately see the disgust on his face as it scrunches up. He points out how the nachos are soft, stale, and seem like they've been reheated way too many times. Shaking his head, he questions why anyone would want cold nachos with cheese that's completely solidified.
Fine dining nachos. Something's not quite right.
How is everything?
Really weird.
The next dish to arrive is a plate of lamb that's been sitting in the freezer for God knows how long. Chef Ramsay can see the frost still clinging to the meat as it's placed in front of him. He carves off a piece, and it's like sawing through a block of ice. He tastes it and immediately recoils, pushing the plate away. Chef Ramsay's frustration builds with each bite as he realizes the center of the dish is still frozen. They didn't even bother to thaw it properly, and he feels embarrassed at the thought of serving this to anyone. And just when it seems bad, things are about to get even worse.
Is there any main course that's on the fine dining menu that's not frozen?
After finishing the lamb, he's told that there's a special dessert to try, a house-made brownie. But when he asks for it, the waiter casually mentions they're out of brownies. Chef Ramsay's shocked, wondering how they could be out of the dessert they're known for. It's almost funny how unprepared the restaurant is.
When you first arrive and you're excited about coming in to eat somewhere, and then half the menu missing, 90% of it frozen.
As Chef Ramsay begins to piece together the disorganization in the kitchen, the tension between the staff becomes impossible to ignore.
Don't even talk like that, man. You gonna let one motherfucker just piss you off like that?
No, you piss me off because you don't.
The chef and the waiter start arguing in front of the guests. Chef Ramsay watches as the two go at it, bickering about whose fault it is that the food is terrible and the restaurant is failing. Chef Ramsay, clearly frustrated, covered his ears and let out a loud sigh, shaking his head. He finally spoke up, raising his voice to cut through the commotion. He told them bluntly that he thought the food was terrible and that he felt embarrassed for them. It was obvious he found the whole situation quite humiliating.
I thought it was a pile of shit. I was embarrassed for you.
But the drama in the dining room is just the tip of the iceberg. Chef Ramsay heads into the kitchen, and it's a scene of utter chaos. Food is piled up everywhere, half-cooked dishes are left sitting on counters, and the chef looks completely overwhelmed. The equipment is old and filthy, and the staff seem to have no sense of urgency or order. Chef Ramsay watches as orders get lost in the shuffle, ingredients are mismanaged, and plates come back to the kitchen untouched. He mutters that it's no surprise the customers aren't satisfied. If they knew what was happening behind the scenes, they'd be out of there in no time.
Warm, congealed blood out of the bottom there. The smell is just vile.
It doesn't take long for Chef Ramsay to see that this restaurant is hanging by a thread. The food is terrible, the staff are disorganized and constantly at each other's throats, and there's no leadership or direction. He tells the owners and staff that they need to start listening to each other and working together as a team. If they don't, the place won't make it through another month.
What are we doing here? Just our basics isn't even together as a team.
By the end of his visit, Chef Ramsay knows he's got his work cut out for him. He's seen a lot of struggling restaurants, but few as confused and dysfunctional as Nino's. The menu is long and overly complicated, and he can sense the impending disaster even before the dishes arrive. Trying to keep his sense of humor intact, he orders the fresh garlic shrimp, hoping for at least one decent bite.
A chef's perception of food when he starts to put strawberries with fresh garlic shrimps.
When the plate arrives, Chef Ramsay glances at the shrimp and pauses. He clasps his hands, almost as if he's saying a quick silent prayer, hoping this meal doesn't end in food poisoning.
Dear God, for all we're about to receive, may the Lord not kill me with food poisoning.
He takes a careful bite, and it's clear right away that he's not impressed. Almost gagging, he shakes his head, saying something about how awful it is. He decides to pass on the rest, clearly hoping the next dish will be better.
That's disgusting. I'll wait for the next course.
Just when Chef Ramsay thinks it can't get any worse, the next dish arrives, and it's even more of a shock to his system. The plate that's set down in front of him is a steak, but it doesn't look anything like what he expected.
Not here, I want to have a good look around and just find out what's in the fridges.
With every bite, he peeled back another layer of the restaurant's problems, exposing the cracks beneath the surface. And with Michael visibly rattled, it's clear that Chef Ramsay's presence has already begun to stir things up in the kitchen. One thing is certain. If the secret garden wants to survive, it will have to change, and fast. Next on Gordon Ramsay's whirlwind tour of struggling restaurants is Dylan's in New York City, a place that bills itself as an Indian-American fusion restaurant. From the moment he arrives, Chef Ramsay can sense that something is off. The concept is confusing, the decor is dated, and the staff seems unsure of their own menu. Determined to see just how deep the problems run, Chef Ramsay decides to start with a simple request: a vegetarian platter.
From the main menu, assorted vegetarian appetizers. And then for main course, the lamb biryani.
When the dish arrives, Chef Ramsay can't hide his shock. And then, instead of the fresh vegetables he was anticipating, the plate is loaded with lamb, making it clear that something had seriously gone wrong. He asked the waitress if this was supposed to be a vegetarian platter. Met just as confused, she looks at the dish and mentions that lamb wasn't even supposed to be on it.
That one's got meat in there. It's not vegetarian. It tastes like lamb.
If he were a vegetarian, I would expect a lawsuit.
Chef Ramsay, however, isn't entertained. He's already lost confidence in the kitchen, and they haven't even made it past the first course.
It's gonna be fun to ask them about.
Still, Chef Ramsay decides to give the restaurant another chance, curious to see if their signature dishes might redeem them. He asks for two of their best-known offerings: lamb biryani and beef buna. When the plates arrive, Chef Ramsay looks at them with a critical eye, knowing he's about to uncover more issues. He starts with the lamb biryani. The dish looks lackluster, with rice that seems hastily prepared, but Chef Ramsay takes a bite nonetheless. While the biryani doesn't wow him, he holds his reaction. The real test is yet to come.
What the is that? Always worries me when they stick tomato roses on top of food and...
When Chef Ramsay tries the beef buna, his expression shifts instantly. He sets his fork down, eyes the dish for a moment, then glances at the staff. He remarks that if this is supposed to be beef, he must have been born in Bangladesh.
And if that's beef, then, hey, I was born in Bangladesh.
Pointing out just how dangerous it is to serve pork while calling it beef.
Pretty much everything that could go wrong went horribly and catastrophically wrong.
Chef Ramsay is visibly concerned, not just about the quality of the food, but also about the potential fallout from such a glaring error. For a restaurant that serves Indian dishes, confusing pork with beef is a fundamental mistake that could offend and alienate a significant portion of their customer base. He emphasizes how serious the situation is, mentioning that it could lead to someone getting really sick or even a lawsuit.
Your food is shit.
Last time food শেফ পছন্দ করে নাই
Food was bland.
Not content with the explanations he's been given, Chef Ramsay decides to take a closer look at the kitchen. As he enters, he's immediately struck by the chaos. The kitchen is hot, cramped, and disorganized. Ingredients are stored improperly, and there's a distinct lack of cleanliness. Food sits uncovered on counters, and pots and pans are stacked haphazardly. Chef Ramsay watches as the cooks struggle to keep up with orders, often working without clear direction or communication.
Nothing. Nothing at all. Get me the general manager, Martin, please. Right. What is that?
I don't know what is this.
You don't know? Moldy. That is, quite frankly, the worst hamburger I've ever seen in my entire life.
Chef Ramsay noticed one of the chefs stirring a pot frantically and asked what he was doing. The chef just shrugged, admitting he had no idea what he was actually making. Chef Ramsay was shocked and couldn't believe it, pointing out that not knowing what you're cooking isn't acceptable, especially in a restaurant setting. Chef Ramsay noticed a pile of pre-cooked food left out on the counter and asked how long it had been sitting there. The head chef, unsure, guessed it had been a few hours. Chef Ramsay couldn't believe it, especially given the heat. He then confronted the manager, frustrated over the lack of food safety practices, and warned that this kind of carelessness could easily lead to someone getting sick. As Chef Ramsay continues his inspection, it becomes clear that the problems at Dylan's go far beyond mislabeled dishes or poor kitchen hygiene. The entire operation seems to lack any sense of organization or purpose. He finds food stored in dirty containers, ingredients that are well past their expiration date, and a staff that's clearly overwhelmed and undertrained. The more he sees, the more Chef Ramsay realizes that Dylan's is not just in trouble, it's on the brink of collapse.
What's that smell? God's sake!
He gathered the staff and management to address the problems, pointing out how the place was being run like a circus. He emphasized the lack of leadership, standards, and respect for customers, questioning how they could expect the business to survive if they couldn't even handle the basics properly.
These guys are professional steam cleaners, yeah? Guys, kitchen straight through there.
The staff stood in silence, clearly feeling defeated. Chef Ramsay could see they weren't intentionally failing, but they were completely overwhelmed. He told them he wasn't trying to make things tougher for them. He was there to help them turn things around. But he made it clear that they had to be open to change because if they kept going the way they were, Dylan's wouldn't survive another month. It's clear to everyone that the situation is dire. Chef Ramsay's honesty, though harsh, brings a sobering dose of reality to a restaurant that's been living in denial. They've made critical mistakes, and now it's time to face them head on. With Chef Ramsay's guidance, there might still be a chance to turn things around, but it's gonna take a lot of work and a complete overhaul of their approach to food, service, and management. Dylan's is at a crossroads. Will they take Chef Ramsay's advice to heart and start making changes, or will they continue down a path of self-destruction? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. They're in for a tough road ahead. Gordon Ramsay's next stop is Tuckahoe, New York, a wealthy commuter town just 45 minutes north of Manhattan. It's here he finds the Old Stone Mill, a restaurant with a reputation that doesn't match its potential. Set in a historic building, the exterior exudes charm and sophistication. But what's going on inside tells a very different story. Chef Ramsay arrives, hopeful that the setting might reflect some culinary delights, but he's in for a rude awakening.
What the? Gordon! How are you? I'm Dean Lorenzo. Nice to see you.
Chef Ramsay sits down, glancing around the restaurant as he waits. 30 minutes pass before the first dish is placed before him, a crab cake with sour mayonnaise and a shrimp cocktail. The crab cake looks greasy, and the mayonnaise appears thick and slightly separated. Without even tasting it, Chef Ramsay is already skeptical. After just one bite, he couldn't even keep it down and spat it out, showing how unimpressed he was. He even begged not to eat any more of it. The salad was a disaster, wilted greens, soggy croutons, and a dressing that was completely bland. It was obvious no one in the kitchen had bothered to taste it before serving.
Please don't make me eat any more of this shit.
Chef Ramsay didn't just criticize the salad, he went a step further and suggested the chef try it himself. When the chef hesitated but eventually took a bite, his reaction mirrored Chef Ramsay's shock. Chef Ramsay then made a comment implying that the salad tasted like it came straight from a baby's diaper, making it clear that no one would want to eat it again.
Looks like someone's had a shit in the bag and stuck it in the oven. Looking at it, it looked like it'd come out of a baby's diaper. Huh? No one's gonna come back for that.
Chef Ramsay moves to the next dish, a simple chopped salad, but this time his face is one of total disbelief. He's incredulous, noting that his 8-year-old daughter could likely whip up a better dish. The vegetables are limp and overcooked, and the meal seems like it's been left out for ages. It's clear he's puzzled by how the kitchen is churning out food that seems to miss even the simplest prep techniques.
Let's have a taste of that. My 8-year-old daughter could cook better than that.
The atmosphere in the restaurant is tense. Chef Ramsay looks around and asks himself why a place with so much potential is serving food that falls so short. The Old Stone Mill has a prime location, a beautiful historic setting, and clientele willing to pay good money for great food. Yet, here it is, delivering subpar dishes that even a novice cook could improve upon. When Chef Ramsay walks into the kitchen, he immediately sees how disorganized everything is. There's no system in place, no one taking charge, and the energy is just flat. Ingredients are all over the place, with some seafood sitting out without refrigeration. Chef Ramsay notices some serious hygiene problems that could lead to contamination. He comes across a tray of pre-cooked food that's been left out for hours and can't hide his frustration. He asks how long it's been there and, upon hearing the answer, warns that it's a serious health risk, hinting at the potential danger to customers.
Are you happy with that risotto?
Not really, Chef, no.
Michael, if you're not happy with it, why'd you serve it, my man?
Chef Ramsay observed the kitchen staff struggling, clearly overwhelmed by even the easiest tasks. As untouched plates kept coming back, his expression grew darker. He asked what was going on, but the team couldn't provide clear answers and seemed unsure about their own menu. When Chef Ramsay finally talks to the owner and chef, he doesn't hold back. He tells them their food is so bad that no one would want to come eat there. The owner gets defensive, and Chef Ramsay points out that while they have a great building, a prime location, and plenty of potential customers, the way they're handling the food just isn't cutting it. The critique goes on as Chef Ramsay mentions that the dishes he's tried so far lack any real thought or effort. He suggests that the cooking feels amateurish. He implies that if this is the standard they're aiming for, they might not be cut out for this industry. Chef Ramsay's irritation is evident. It's not just about the food being subpar, it's about the missed potential in a place that could do so much better.
I'm miffed. I'm not too sure if you're actually hungry for the change, you know that?
Throughout his visit, Chef Ramsay's reaction is one of disbelief mixed with a genuine desire to understand how things got so bad. The Old Stone Mill has every reason to succeed, but what Chef Ramsay finds is a restaurant running on autopilot, with no real understanding of its own shortcomings. It's a classic example of wasted potential, and it's a reality check for everyone involved. The situation at the Old Stone Mill is a mess. Chef Ramsay makes it clear that without significant changes, the restaurant is doomed. The basics are being ignored, and the result is food that simply doesn't belong on anyone's table. If this restaurant is going to survive, it needs to wake up to its problems and start addressing them immediately. In Gordon Ramsay's latest visit, he heads to Finn McCool's, a restaurant where things take a turn for the worse. From the outside, Finn McCool's resembles a somber affair more than a vibrant dining destination. The exterior is drab, with a design that evokes the atmosphere of a funeral parlor rather than a lively eatery. It's not the kind of place that makes you eager to step inside, but Chef Ramsay is determined to give it a fair chance.
To help a family that are in crisis, and bloody hell, it looks like a funeral parlor from the outside, not a restaurant.
Upon entering, Chef Ramsay is immediately struck by how the restaurant's interior matches its uninviting exterior. The decor is dated and lacks any sense of warmth or charm. However, Chef Ramsay's primary concern is the food, so he moves past the lackluster ambiance and focuses on the menu.
It's got tweed neck curtains, like you're going to visit your granny.
Chef Ramsay starts with high expectations, ordering a selection of dishes that he hopes will reveal the restaurant's true potential. First up is the clam dish. Finn McCool prides itself on offering fresh seafood, but Chef Ramsay's excitement quickly turns to disappointment when he discovers that the clams are frozen. The clams clearly lack freshness in both look and flavor. Chef Ramsay, not pleased at all, suggests that calling them fresh when they're actually frozen is misleading and not acceptable.
The clams, are they fresh clams?
Honestly, it's frozen.
Next, Chef Ramsay turns his attention to the popular spring rolls, which are apparently a favorite among the bar's patrons, particularly those who've had a few drinks. When the spring rolls arrive, it's clear that they're not living up to their reputation. Chef Ramsay takes a bite and immediately notices that they are greasy and lacking in flavor. He commented that the spring rolls were essentially a soggy mess. He suggested they might be okay for a late-night snack after a few drinks, but they definitely weren't up to par for a respectable restaurant.
People really like them.
No doubt half the customers are drunk.
The disappointment continues with the salmon dish. Chef Ramsay's initial hope that it might redeem the meal is quickly dashed as he tastes the fish. It is overwhelming with vinegar, to the point where it dominates the entire flavor profile of the dish. Chef Ramsay seems really surprised by the dish's poor quality. He comments that the salmon tastes overwhelmingly of vinegar, making it impossible to enjoy. He questions what might have been the thought process behind it.
Salmon at all?
Off through?
Does my shepherd's pie have any balsam and vinegar?
No.
Good.
Ramsay finally tries the shepherd's pie, which is supposed to be a comforting, hearty dish. But what shows up is a greasy, unappetizing mess. It's practically drowning in fat, with a texture that's more like a greasy disaster than a proper meal. Ramsay takes a bite, and his reaction says it all.
It's just a big ball of grease.
He mentioned that it didn't look appetizing, and just seeing it was making him feel sick. The meal reaches its lowest point when Chef Ramsay's reaction to the shepherd's pie becomes physically overwhelming. Unable to stomach the greasy, poorly executed dish, Chef Ramsay ends up vomiting.
That's disgusting. Do you want it?
Second door on the left.
Oh.
It's a stark indication of just how bad the food at Finn McCool's is. The combination of frozen clams, soggy spring rolls, vinegar-soaked salmon, and a greasy shepherd's pie creates an experience that's not only disappointing, but also physically revolting. Throughout his visit, Chef Ramsay's frustration grows with each dish. Finn McCool's fails to deliver on even the most basic expectations of freshness, flavor, and quality. The dishes are poorly executed, with a clear lack of attention to culinary standards. Chef Ramsay's critique is blunt, but justified. The restaurant's claims of serving quality food are completely undermined by the reality of what's on the plate.
When a chef can't make a shepherd's pie, it worries me.
Chef Ramsay's overall impression of Finn McCool's was far from positive. He felt the restaurant had lost its way, with issues ranging from frozen clams and overly vinegary salmon to an overly greasy shepherd's pie. Everything seemed off, and the place was in disarray. The situation at Finn McCool's highlights the importance of maintaining high standards in both food preparation and presentation.
You need to seriously pay a lot more respect to what you're doing. And the first thing we're going to do this morning.
In summary, Chef Ramsay's visit to Finn McCool's is marked by a series of culinary failures. The restaurant's attempt to offer fresh and appealing dishes falls flat with frozen seafood, greasy appetizers, and poorly executed main courses. Chef Ramsay's reaction, from disappointment to physical revulsion, highlights the severity of the restaurant's issues. Without significant changes, Finn McCool's will continued to struggle, leaving its patrons and Chef Ramsay with an unforgettable and unpleasant experience. In the world of kitchen nightmares, Gordon Ramsay's scathing critiques often reveal the harsh realities of failing restaurants. Chef Ramsay's experiences underscore a fundamental truth. Quality food and proper preparation are non-negotiable. These visits highlight the critical importance of meeting culinary standards and the impact of poor execution on a restaurant's success. As Chef Ramsay continues to challenge and confront, the hope is always that these wake-up calls lead to genuine improvements and a brighter future for these struggling establishments. But which of these restaurants do you think was the worst?
Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like and share. Hit the subscribe button to never miss out on our future videos. And if you thought this video was crazy, then make sure to check out the next one right here. It's even better.